The California Gold Rush was a sensation that moved like wildfire across America. California was not populated by many, but had different cultures like Native Americans and Spanish Mexicans. There was a population of 150,000 Native Americans and 6,000 Spanish Mexicans in 1845. In 1848, James Marshall, a carpenter, was sent by John Sutter to start a sawmill on the Great American River. Looking at the canal, James noticed gold glistening under the water. When word spread out that Marshall had discovered gold in California, people from all over the world traveled in harsh conditions to reach the western United States. These people were miners, called 49ers, not the football team. Americans made about 2/3 of the 49ers. The other 1/3 was made up of Native Americans, African Americans, South Americans, Mexicans, Australians, Chinese, and New Englanders. The miners came by sailing around South America, sailing to Panama, and traveling across the land, or traveling across the North American trails, which featured mountains, prairies, and more. The typical miners were mostly young, white American men. Arguments tended to arise between the miners, who had a tendency to gamble away the money they earned. The 49ers, despite rumors, usually did not strike it rich. Finding gold was easier said than done. Plus, mining supplies were priced very high. The mining camps were set up with rows of tents along the rivers and streams. The tents were later replaced with wooden buildings and stores and saloons. Most of the camps were dangerous and subject to outbursts of violence. There were countless murders, hangings, mobs, accidents, and worse. The miners would stand in freezing cold streams where they would sift it and try to find gold, without any success. Many miners fell ill. Though there were a lot of men in the camps, there were barely any women, children, or elderly people. The women would stay at the camps and do the cooking and the cleaning, while the men were at work, trying to strike it rich. Americans were not very patient, so they tended to abandon mining sites once the easy gold was gone. The Chinese miners were patient and used to heavy labor, so they would go to the abandoned mining sites and find lots of gold. Americans grew hateful and angry because of the Chinese miners' success. They forced the Chinese and other foreigners out of the area, especially once California became a state in 1850. Chinese opened up many businesses in San Francisco and called the area Chinatown. Since the gold rush, the population of California grew to 250,000, especially in San Francisco, which had a small population of 400 and grew to 35,000 in 1850. Thanks to the gold rush, California increased with the population. Many people came to California, and after the gold rush, they started to settle down and start businesses. The former residents were being kicked out by the incoming Americans. The gold rush and the manifest destiny both relate to each other because the gold rush represents the American spread to California and seizing of the former California residents' land.